How was that for you? I love it. Awesome. I should get my notes, huh? Okay. So, thank you for the first session. Next is our first series of innovation talks. These are short talks, about 10 minutes of presentation, about 5 minutes of Q&A from Vixul portfolio members. So, what we're going to have is two speakers back to back. I'm going to make this short so you have the most of your 15 minutes. Our first topic is the rise of Postgres, which is something I honestly do not know anything about. But please welcome to the stage an industry leader in Postgres to give his talk, CEO and founder of Stromatics, Umair Shahid. Thank you.
So we're setting things here. So the clicker should work. Hello? Okay, this works. That's a good first step. That's not working. I guess that's the next step that we need to figure out. How do I get the presentation up? Yeah? All right, all right. All right. Good morning, Austin. And thank you, everyone, for being here. As I was introduced, my name is Umair Shahid, and today we're going to be talking about the rise of Postgres. We're going to be discussing a few historic trends, and we're going to talk about how it's being used in modern applications. A bit of an intro for me. If you have ever run a SQL command, if you have ever queried from a table, you will recognize the select star. And if Umair were a table, that's the information that you're going to get. I've been in the Postgres space for more than 20 years. My hometown is Islamabad. And what I am doing today is running a company by the name of Stromatics, and we provide professional services for Postgres. Our mission is to help businesses scale Postgres for critical data. But that is not what we're here to talk about. What we are here to talk about is Postgres. So what exactly is Postgres? So, a raise of hands for people who are hearing that name for the very first time right now. That's a very few hands. Very surprising. All right. So that's good. So Postgres is an object relational database, and it's open source with a very liberal license. And this point actually is very key, the liberal license and how flexible it is, how much it allows you to do, which is also the cause or the main force behind the popularity of the database. Is there anyone over here who ever reads a license before starting using the software? Oh man, I respect you. I have respect for you guys. So yeah, I mean, it's legalese, it's hard to read typically, but with the Postgres license, it's a grand total of 143 words. You will be able to read it in under 3 minutes, I guarantee you. You do not need to have any legal expertise. And essentially, it just says two things. It says, do whatever you want to do with it, and don't blame the University of California, Berkeley, in case something goes wrong. That's it. That's the license. It's compliant with the SQL standard. It's compliant with ACID, which is the core requirement of any database, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. It supports both structured and unstructured data, and it's highly extensible. That's a bit of an intro to Postgres. And of course, the slides are not moving anymore. So we're just going to do this. OK. A bit of a history lesson. Why the license says do not blame the University of California, Berkeley, because that's where the project started. It started as the Berkeley Postgres project. It was led by Professor Michael Stonebreaker. It was sponsored by a bunch of fancy defense stuff. And in 1994 is when it started to become open source and be more publicly available to people outside of the defense and outside of the university. The community started building it, and it became faster and more accessible. And in 1996, the community felt that, well, Postgres 95 is a name that's not really going to scale. What happens when the year turns 96? What? So remove the year, added SQL, because that's what the compliance is, and now it's called PostgreSQL. Very hard to pronounce, I know. Most people get it wrong. Let's just call it Postgres. And I need to go back to the laptop to change the slide. All right. So a few numbers over here. More than 35 years of development, lots of contributors globally. I'm proud to be one of those. And there's pretty much unmeasurable data that is currently stored in Postgres. Lots of events that take place around the world. I have the honor to speak at many such events on what our experience has been with customers, et cetera. And the website proclaims Postgres to be the world's most advanced open source relational database. And now even the laptop is not working. OK, there it goes. Now, before talking a bit more about Postgres, a little bit of a general data about open source software. Now, this is a survey by Market and Markets that was done in 2022. At that time, the open source software market stood at, the global market stood at $25.6 billion. And the expected size that they projected 5 years from that time was at a growth rate of about 16.2% to be at 54.1 billion. That's a humongous growth for any industry, any kind of software. Red Hat runs a survey every 2 to 3 years, and the name of the survey is the State of Enterprise Open Source. The last survey that they ran was in 2022, and I really like this quote that came out of that survey, and that is, the question isn't really about whether you want to use open source software or not. The question is when you're going to use it and how you're going to use it. A few more stats from that same survey, from that same study that Red Hat published. The increasing levels of trust that you see by leaders in the tech sector on open source software. 89% believe that open source software is more secure than proprietary software. 80% of the IT leaders are going to increase the use of open source in their tech space. And 77% of IT leaders at that time had a more positive view of open source software in general than they used to have a year ago. So the perceptions are also changing. And when I started working with Postgres, it was back in 2003. At that time, mostly when people started talking to us, they talked about costs and the need to save costs. But today, when we talk to people, it's not just about cost. In fact, in the top 4 reasons that Red Hat published on why people use open source software, cost isn't even among the top 4. Right? So the top is better security. The quality is at number 2. And being able to leverage the open source software safely is at number 3. And of course, cloud native comes at number 4. Now, even though it's no longer just about cost, just to give you an idea of the impact of what cost means. Now, I took these numbers from Oracle's own website. Oracle is the other alternative in legacy software and legacy systems where databases are deployed. So these are list prices, and I admit that Oracle will give you humongous discounts when you're actually trying to sign on a deal. But even if you assume a discount of 50% that Oracle would offer you, just look at these numbers. You do not have any licensing fee with Postgres. You do not pay for any additional functionality in Postgres. And if you want to leverage 24/7 SLA-based support and subscriptions from companies like Stromatics, you're looking at an annual cost for one database instance of somewhere around in the range of $5,000, where Oracle Standard Edition is going to cost you over $20,000, and the Enterprise Edition is going to cost you over $100,000. So when it comes to cost, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Now, a few glimpses, one glimpse, sorry, few features. So the database is reliable, scalable, the performance is really good, it's secure. But on the left side, the 4 bullets that I see and the sub-bullets, these are things that you expect from any database. These are just taken for granted. If you're using a database, it's going to be there, right? So I'm not going to go into that, but it's the bullets on the right side that make Postgres unique. The extensibility of the database. The design is such that you can add hooks and add extensions on top of the Postgres database engine to extend its capability. If you don't find capability inside of the database, you can extend it. You can choose a language of your choice, and the database functionality just enhances from there. The global community, massive community all over the world. That diversity brings its own benefits. It brings its own different use cases that people use the database for different use cases across the world. And the community tends to be very, very helpful for newbies, especially as you start using the database. The vendor support. When you're using a database like Oracle or Mongo or MySQL or SQL Server, if you're using Oracle, you have Oracle to go to. If you're using SQL Server, you've got Microsoft to go to. With Postgres, you've got a choice of vendors. You can go to any one of them. And in case, and that's one of the things that I tell customers as well, because you have a choice, it puts more pressure on us to service you better, because if you don't like our service, you're just going to pack up and go somewhere else. Right? It's very easy for you to do. That just puts more pressure on us. There's no vendor lock-in. That's the key phrase over here. And of course, you've got compliance for both SQL and ACID. And it's not just that. The Postgres community is actually a thought leader in the SQL standard, in writing the SQL standard. And most recently, the SQL standard that came out for 2024, we added GraphSQL capabilities in it. And it's only a matter of time before you see GraphSQL coming into Postgres. And Postgres is being used for pretty much everything that you can think of. Let me see if now this works. Nope, still nothing. Anyways, OK. So if you could just bear with the inability to point things out, but if you have analytical workloads, you've got tools like Citus and PG Analytics. That's on the right side. If you've got AI workloads, you have vector databases inside of Postgres. If you've got time series, you've got foreign data wrappers, graph use cases, spatial data. Use the mouse? On the laptop, yeah. All right? Oh, OK. Pointing out. OK, yeah. So pointing out is good, like this. OK. So yeah, graph, spatial data, PostGIS. Actually, in 2003, when I started working with Postgres, most people would turn to Postgres for the spatial capabilities. And I want to take a moment to pause on this slide, the global brands that are using Postgres in production. Now, these are not logos that are just pulled off from the internet in some shape or form. Over the course of the past 20-odd years, these are logos that I have personally worked with. I know that they use Postgres. I know that they deployed it in production. These are customers that I have worked with personally. So it's not a random list. You've got big names in there, and you see that many of these big names are using Postgres reliably in production with the required support. And that brings me to the point I've been advocating to the Postgres community to just ditch open source relational qualifier in the description of the database on the website. Postgres is the world's most advanced database, and let's just call it that. And that's the end of my presentation. That's the QR code to my LinkedIn profile. I'd love to connect with folks over here. In case you have any problems related to Postgres, keep calm and call us.
We've got time for questions.
We do?
Yes.
Great. Any yes.
So, Ashok Kumar, so I've used Postgres quite a bit. Mike over there, right next to you.
I got you.
Can you hear me? Hi. Awesome talk. Love the energy. My name is Ashok Kumar. I've used Postgres quite a bit as a developer and in my teams. So the way I look at the market is that on the entry level, you've got MySQL, which I equate to, sort of the startup, the small business world. And then on the enterprise side, you have Oracle and SQL Server. And mid-market and entry-level enterprise is where I think Postgres is being used, right? So MySQL has a 50% market share. Postgres has a less than a 20% in enterprise. Now, is Postgres looking to just own that marketplace, or is it really going to move up? If it's the most advanced database period, is it really looking to upset Oracle? Is really making a conscious move to get into the big enterprise spaces where I don't see Postgres or open source adoption yet? And the second part of the question is, when you think of developments now, when you think of how LLMs are being used, how AI and training models are using databases, you consistently hear about MongoDB, Cassandra, NoSQL databases. I don't hear as much about RDBMS, let alone Postgres, right? So what is the role do you think Postgres will play in an AI world?
Sure. So I think that this slide would actually answer at least part of your question over here. I'm not sure how this got skipped as I was presenting, but so essentially what this shows is a combination of data from DB Engines, which is the authoritative website on databases, and Stack Overflow, which runs an annual survey for the developer community, and the developer community, of course, Stack Overflow has the biggest one in the entire world. And this is the trend of popularity of the database over the course of 5 years. And Oracle, actually, with the application developers, was never really popular, even to begin with. MySQL definitely was most popular 5 years ago, but if you see the latest trend, 2023 is when Postgres actually overtook MySQL. So increasingly, developers are turning towards Postgres. Now, especially in terms of your assertion about the kind of workspace or the kind of segment of the industry that would use the database, the most common queries that we get are about how to migrate Oracle workloads to Postgres workloads. So I would counter argue that Postgres is not just mid-market, it also is increasingly capturing the enterprise market that traditionally belonged fully to Oracle. Right? And in terms of your AI question, the top right quadrant, the AI vectors, you've got extensions that are specializing in vector databases that you can use with Postgres. We've run benchmarks. Actually, if you go to our website, there are a couple of blogs that we've run, and we conducted a webinar last month on the topic of AI and vector storage in Postgres. Just like AI is an up-and-coming technology, vector database and vector storage in Postgres is up and coming and rapidly growing in its stability. Right?
When is it more economical to run your own Postgres instance versus using services on Google, because they also provide Postgres services, right? So when is the right time to host yours versus just use as a service?
Right. So just to repeat the question for the benefit of the audience, when is the right time to host your own instance of Postgres rather than going for the database as a service offering from Google and Azure and AWS? I think that pretty much like most answers, the answer to this question is it depends, right? What it depends on is your organizational strategy of on-prem versus data center versus cloud storage. If your entire application stack resides in the cloud, then it probably makes sense for your database to also reside in the cloud, right? Because you want to make sure that the entire application stack is close together and you're leveraging the same technologies. But there are some, for example, there are some jurisdictions in the world who by regulation want the data to be within a certain geographical boundary. Right. In that case, if you don't have a data center of your favorite hyperscaler in that jurisdiction, then you are almost forced to host your own. Right. So if you're talking just about cost, and we ran this this test on Amazon on AWS. If you do an apples to apples on the hardware power that you're getting, running Postgres on RDS is 4 times more expensive than using your own Postgres installation on EC2. And running Postgres on Aurora is 4 times more expensive than doing it on RDS. So EC2 VM Postgres is 16 times cheaper than Aurora Postgres. Right. But again, there are benefits that you get. There are other kinds of cost saving that you could potentially get. So again, the answer is it depends.
Is it easy to scale like if you start your own?
With the right expertise, yes. Yeah. Call for it, yes.